The show 16 and Pregnant followed teenage girls in high school dealing with the hardships of teenage pregnancy. Parenthood is a huge challenge, even for those of us who become parents in our mid to late 20s or 30s. So this show was always going to be an exercise in dysfunction on full display. The storyline of Jeanelle Evans was presented as a 16-year-old who loves partying, dating a long-distance boyfriend, and being too immature to raise a child. What the producers of the show didn't mention is that the father of the child, Andrew, was 21 years old at the time, meaning that he would have been 18 when he started dating a 13-year-old Jeanelle. He is verbally abusive towards Jeanelle and finally ends up in prison on a drunk driving charge while she is left to take care of the baby with her mother. Well, he was dusty when he met her, and this predator obviously wasn't going to step up to being a father. So while he is off living his deadbeat life, Jeanelle goes out with her friends, leaving her mother to care for her son Jace. This puts a strain on their relationship, revealing dysfunctional exchanges between mother and daughter, with them engaging in screaming matches. By the end of the episode, we are left with the impression that Jeanelle is getting herself together and learning from the mistakes of her past. But as we come to find out in the spin-off series Teen Mom, this couldn't be further from the truth. By the time we see Jeanelle again on the spin-off Teen Mom, her partying has forced her mom to take away custody of Jace, even though she keeps trying to get Jeanelle to be more involved with her son's life. To this day, 10 years later, Jeanelle has visitations with her son every other weekend. The child's father signed over his rights and has not seen their son to this day. Jeanelle goes on to date a boy named Kiefer, who she moves into her mother's home. The two of them end up stealing her mother's credit cards and running off to New Jersey, which leads to them being arrested. This is Jeanelle's first encounter with the law, and she's sentenced to probation. The Teen Mom franchise continues to film this toxic spiral of Jeanelle's life as it becomes apparent that she has begun dabbling in heroin use. The show displayed these teens in drugged-out hazes on camera for the whole world to see. I'm honestly curious as to the thought process with these production companies when they see stuff like this happening and they just keep filming. Now guys, realize that some of this footage is taken while they are driving and they seem to be under the influence. As we continued following Jeanelle's story, she was once again arrested 6 months later for assault after a video surfaced of her in an altercation with another teen named Brittany Truitt. She was arrested 5 months later for violation of her parole due to drug use. Another 5 months later, she was arrested for making harassing phone calls to a former roommate. She would be taken back into police custody 6 days later for violating the domestic violence protection order of no contact with the said former roommate. Her relationship with Kiefer ended after seemingly dragging on in a blur of crime, drugs, breakups, and makeups. He would go on to get arrested for operating a meth lab with intent to distribute, and he was arrested again after serving his sentence for parole violations. Meanwhile, Teen Mom continued to follow Jeanelle and her different relationships, one of them with Gary Head, who was violent towards her and strangled her with a bedsheet. This led to them both being arrested. Within months, Jeanelle had moved on and gotten married to Cortland. This marriage also was violent and ended in arrests for both of them for violence as well as drug charges. Sadly, Jeanelle suffered a miscarriage during this toxic relationship, and she vowed never to speak with Cortland again. Her love life as well as the show Teen Mom moved swiftly on as we see Jeanelle arrested once again for failing a random drug test. By this time, she was dating Nathan, and their relationship had turned violent. The police were called, leading to Jeanelle's 10th arrest in less than 3 years. The couple went on to have a child, but they called it quits due to the constant fighting. The fighting continued even as they co-parented, leading to Jeanelle again being arrested for domestic violence. She was also arrested for assaulting Nathan's new girlfriend. She eventually moved on to marry David Eason and have her third child with him. During one of their breakups, David allegedly assaulted and pistol whipped her friend when they were collecting her things. David hit the alleged victim in the back of the neck and on his back with a handgun. And guys, this happened in front of her 3- and 6-year-old children. This is the stuff of trauma. MTV later fired him from Teen Mom after an uproar from fans following his homophobic remarks on social media. Around this time, footage emerged of a horrifying incident of road rage. Jeanelle had her 8-year-old son in the passenger seat when she allegedly pulls a gun on a man who had cut her off in traffic. No charges were filed, however, it is horrifying to see that poor child being exposed to this level of toxic behavior.
It was a shocking episode of Teen Mom 2 last night. So Jeanelle Evans was driving with her 8-year-old son Jace when she got into a road rage situation on the streets of North Carolina and eventually pulled a gun on the man after she followed him to his house. This is nuts.
Are you kidding me, dude? Oh my God. Give me your phone.
And if he tries to get out and hurt you, I can grab this Nerf gun and whip him.
You were tailgating me, you dumbass! Now he's blocking me in. Dude, he just hit my car! Babe, he just hit my car! Dude!
Wow.
So Jeanelle was able to pull away, but the guy followed her, leading to a car chase down the highway. The guy eventually gave up, and then a few minutes later, Jeanelle was pulled over by the cops, and this is what she told them.
I was on the highway, and this guy was tailgating me in a big truck, huge truck. He got in front of my car. He slammed on the brakes so hard that I swerved off into the grass, and then his head almost hit the dashboard.
Now please note how she is weaponizing her tears in this situation. The manipulation. If anyone is a victim here, it's her child, not her.
So then after that, he went down a dirt road. I followed him. He went to his house and he parked. So then all of a sudden, he pulls out his truck and tries to corner me in. And he's yelling at me, "You're going to jail. You're not leaving." I said, "I'm not leaving," but I was scared and I was turning around. And as I was turning around, he hit the front of my bumper with his truck and he told me, I'm not leaving. Yes, with his truck.
He was trying to block her.
He was trying to block me.
Was saying this is disgusting. Who does this in front of their kid? Nice
Seriously.
lessons. You're teaching them. Shame on you. Jen says, I can't believe they actually aired this. This is why I don't watch these kinds of shows. Crystal says, Jeanelle and her behavior is a prime example of everything that's wrong with the world today. MTV needs to drop her. So this is back in April, May. There were no charges laid against either driver. And Jeanelle hasn't said anything about this publicly at all. But I just don't get that idea. It's one thing that, road rage, that kind of thing. Call the police, sure. To follow this guy to his house with your kid in the car and you're driving erratically.
Her whole life is on camera. So she knows full well, what she is doing.
Right. Yeah, she's aware that, there's cameras in the car. Lori says she drives around with the gun in the car. And that's, you see a lot of the stuff in the news right now of things happening with police and people that are unarmed. And the fact that she has her gun there.
Oh, well,
he's not too worried?
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Now guys, I have serious questions. Why would the police just say, "Hey buddy," to this little boy who's in this dangerous situation and then do nothing more to help him? They probably thought they were helping him by going easy on his mother. But at the end of the day, who really benefits from the selective privilege? Definitely not the child, because he would need someone to step up and say, look, you can't do this in front of your child. You can't put your child through this kind of trauma. The police just want to play off the incident as nothing major. Hey buddy, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, good. That's all good then. Without any kind of thought as to the long-term trauma that this child is going to suffer because of this incident. Children are human beings, just like us adults. When they see someone suffer, especially if it's a family member, they respond by wanting to help. Also go through a stream of difficult emotions like confusion and guilt, and they desperately want to help us. You can see how Jace tries to come to his mother's defense by appearing to support what she says. But then, when he tells his grandmother what happened, that his mom pulled out a gun, we watch Jeanelle accuse him of lying on an episode of Teen Mom. You can imagine how confusing it must be for a child. First of all, witnessing this outrageous behavior, and then being accused of lying when he's telling the truth. Meanwhile, with her husband fired from the show, Jeanelle had grown tired of the Teen Mom 2 franchise that had shown us a decade of her life. But she was stuck in a contract with MTV. Rumors were swirling once again about her being in an abusive relationship with her husband David, but she continued to deny this. She did, however, add fire to the rumors by calling 911 in an episode of Teen Mom, where she accused her husband of assaulting and pinning her down to the ground, that she couldn't move her arm, and she thought she might have a cracked collarbone. She later took this back, saying that she had fallen during a drunken argument with him. A few months later, she was mourning the death of her dog. Her husband had allegedly shot and killed her French bulldog in the woods behind their North Carolina home. And he admitted that he did it, but blamed it on the dog for snapping at their child. This was allegedly done in front of Jeanelle's second son, leading the police to make a welfare check. All the children were removed from their care by Child Protective Services, and after a series of court hearings, the children were returned with no charges filed. The shooting resulted in Jeanelle's firing from Teen Mom 2. During her time on Teen Mom 2, Jeanelle had threatened to quit the show for multiple reasons, including poor editing, stating, "They treat all of us as if we are in a freak show and in cages. We aren't human beings to MTV whatsoever." She has continued to have conflict with her mother over custody of her first son, Jace. She claims that her son set fire to her mom Barbara's home and has out-of-control behavior. Unfortunately, it's not surprising for viewers who have followed his life in the midst of all this chaos. Unfortunately, her run-ins with the law continue even off-camera, as she and her husband were recently arrested on other related charges. Her planned clothing line was dropped, and she has shared details of an ongoing cancer scare, as she is currently undergoing tests for it. I wish her all the best, and hope that now that reality TV is in her past, she can start a new chapter with more calmness and happiness for her and her children. I remember watching 16 and Pregnant on MTV when the show started airing, and thinking it was an interesting concept that perhaps would serve as a warning to young people to be careful not to get into risky behavior. However, some would argue that the show, as well as the spin-off Teen Mom, have somewhat glamorized the phenomenon of teen pregnancy. And while it's been interesting to follow the characters grow into adults and their children grow into teenagers, it's also been a display in the toxic paths that some characters have followed.